Yes, sir.
Try your microphone, please. Yeah. Mike? Thank you. All right. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please? Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your blessings and your guidance over our city, our state, and our country. We ask that you will guide us as we do this business of the city, and you will protect all of our first responders and keep them safe. We ask that you will get us through this terrible pandemic and help us to get on the road to healing, and let all of our citizens and all of our family and friends please remain safe. These things we ask in your name, and amen.
Amen.
Mr. Rogers, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have 3 people that have signed up to address the council. Kim Williams, you're first.
Good evening. My name is Kim Williams. I live at 801 49th Street. I'm here tonight because I want to talk about a situation that was brought to my attention last month regarding a single-family home on 11th Street in Vienna. This is a single-family dwelling that the resident she passed, and so then the home was sold to a real estate investor. Now, this person took that single-family home, took all the rooms, divided them into, for lack of a better term, apartments, or just, they're not even apartments, they're just rooms for people to rent. He then put in bathrooms inside of these rooms, sometimes utilizing closets in order to do this. So the people that live in this home don't have access to a kitchen, okay? They're not roommates, they're not people that are just deciding to rent a home together and to share all the expenses, etc. That's not what's happening. This landlord has agreements with each person who rents this single-family home. Now, here's my question. I don't understand how this is allowed in the city of Vienna. First of all, I looked up the city code, and this is zoned as residential for single-family, residential 1. So in no way can you take that piece of property and divide it up into just rooms to rent to people. This is, it's very concerning because I feel like as a resident and a homeowner of Vienna, I would hate to think that somebody could buy a piece of property in my neighborhood and then just divide it into little rooms, little cubbies for various people to live in, and it's just not a good situation. It's not a good situation for the homeowners. It's not a good situation for the tenants. Like I said, these people do not have access to kitchen facilities, nothing. It's just a room. I also looked at state code, and I don't see anywhere in the state code where that's allowable. I also looked at the Fair Housing Act and don't see where that's allowable. In West Virginia, we have a thing called a rooming house, okay, where you could have a home and you could rent a room to somebody in your house. And then that person can have access to communal areas such as the kitchen. That's not what's happening here. Also, when you have a rooming house, you have to be living on the property. This is an investor who doesn't even live in the county, okay? So what prevents somebody from coming into Vienna, buying a house for this purpose? It's an awful good investment for somebody if they're not stopped, because they can take those rooms and charge $600-700 a rent. In this case, this is what this person is doing. He has now created a situation where he can get that $600 or $700 a rent 4 or 5 times per month from each, so that obviously we don't want that. So I've addressed this with the mayor. This seems to be kind of stalled at this point. I would hope that we can take a look at that. It seems to me under home rule, you have advanced things that you can do. You have tools in the toolbox. That's one of the reasons for home rule, to stop this, because, you know, I believe that Vienna is the best place to live in the Mid Ohio Valley. I do. I mean, I'm a Vienna native, and I've heard this said many times in this council chambers about how nice Vienna is, and we're one of the top cities in the state of West Virginia, but we're not going to be unless we nip this in the bud. So thank you.
I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this name right, but Delilah Bainbridge.
Hi, I'm Delilah Bainbridge, and I live on 11th Street. I moved back to this area in April in the middle of all of this, and I have like the nicest neighbors. They accepted us really quickly, and we were comfortable. And that house that she was talking about is across the street from me. I had about 3 weeks in the neighborhood that was nice, and then we saw garbage start piling up in front of that house. We started hearing what he was doing to his tenants, and we spoke to his tenants. It made him really mad, so he's threatened my senior neighbor, who didn't want to come here tonight. And recently, I took pictures of the construction on the weekend, and he thought it was her, and he went to her house and threatened her. We don't let our kids play in the front yard anymore when he's in the neighborhood, and I'm kind of scared to do this right now because he's gonna know it was me. But I don't want to see this happen. The people, like, I think if you rent and pay that much, you should be able to live safely. He threatens his tenants, and he threatens the people who own houses. So I just hope you guys will do something, because he could do that up and down Grand Central. So thank you.
Ethel Harris.
I think everybody knows my name, Ethel Harris, 44th Street in Vienna. And I think we're just beating a dead horse to death. But I hear the golf cart deal is coming back up again. Well, I knew it would. But what I don't understand is the people that brought it up the first time don't live in the city of Vienna. You're not getting no taxes from them. And they're not paying the police fee, or I don't believe they are, even though if they're getting city water, the police is not over them down there. It's the sheriff's department. So I don't understand why they have any right to push all this stuff up on the people that's paying out all these taxes. I mean, I just paid $7,000 worth of taxes last week. And I didn't even add it up of how much of this money comes to the city of Vienna. That really ticks me off. Here he's sitting back wanting this stuff to go through. Now, you know Grand Central is the busiest highway in West Virginia, they say. Now, what's going to happen, you watch these golf carts, these here four-wheelers, side by side. They're going to get out there, and I hope and pray that we don't have something to happen at one of the red lights like happened out there on Route 68 2 days ago. My son-in-law's stepfather got killed there. Ran a red light, so they say. If this happens in Vienna, I pray to God it's none of your all's kids or family that's on those golf carts or four-wheelers. And I pray that you guys will change your mind. I don't care what the law says for the state. We're not a beach place. If they want sand and golf carts, send them to Myrtle Beach or somewhere. But don't give them what they're asking for when they're not paying for nothing, Randy. I mean, I know we could use money in Vienna from taxes and things. But to do that, I think it is terrible. If they want to do things, let them annex into Vienna. Jim annexed out. Let them annex in. then we'll get some of their money. But I just don't think it's right, and that it really should be thought about heavy tonight before you guys all go voting yes again. And I understand Roger Bibby is the one that brought it back up again. People in Vienna does not want it, and I believe that the cops in Vienna don't want it either, because you're going to be bringing in more new police officers to take care of all these accidents, all these complaints. It's like Bruce Rogers just said, up on 51st Street, he saw the golf cart going across the highway with a kid on it. Well, you know what? I feel sorry for that parent if it ever gets hit with that child on it. I mean, it's a sad situation, but I don't care. You guys should vote against it. I don't know why you're not voting against it. I mean, does Vienna need all that traffic? We got so much now. And we're getting people in here now from New York. So it's not going to be an easy thing to control. So I'm just praying that you guys will definitely have a change of heart and vote it down again tonight, and not let it go any further. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for August the 13th, 2020. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on July the 23rd, 2020 has been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, the minutes will stand approved as posted. Councilman Leach, report of the treasurer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Reconciliation of funds for City of Vienna dated August 11th, 2020. I've reviewed the accounts. They appear in order. Also, I would note that the city has begun to receive some of the funds with respect to COVID support, and those are reflected in the reconciliation of funds, and that the city is fiscally solid.
All right, thank you very much. On our agenda this evening, under unfinished business, we have an ordinance on second reading, amending 955.01, dealing with the opening and closing time of Spencer's Landing. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby amends the operating hours for Spencer's Landing as follows. Operation hours: the hours of use by the public for the property presently known as Spencer's Landing, specifically that approximately 17.094 acre tract on River Road located between the Ohio River to the west and the railroad tracks running parallel to the River Road to the east. Lonsdale Drive, the Conley property, and the Leslie property to the south, and the Jimmy Harper property to the north is hereby open for public use between sunrise and sunset. The point of this ordinance amendment is to bring the opening and closing time in line with all of the other parks in the city of Vienna, and this was requested to us by the police department. So, having said that, I'll entertain a motion on second reading for the ordinance amending 955.01.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve on second reading the ordinance amending 955.01. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir, Bruce.
I will say again, I think that this is not necessary. If this piece of property were put under our park department as another park, that the restrictions of closing and opening are already in there. And this is out. It's in no one's department as far as that's concerned. I don't know if it's because of the status of the John Mansville property or not, but I think it should be put under the park department, and we should start working about a plan to develop that area down there, such as restrooms, picnic shelters, bandstands, so that we can have concerts by the river. I don't think it should just be left out there and under no one's department.
Any other comments? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance on second reading, amending 955.01, adjusting the time for the public use, making it between sunrise and sunset, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Under new business, the first item on our agenda this evening is a resolution approving the CDBG Annual Action Plan for 2020-2021. Tony Tiano, please.
Hi. Before you tonight is the City of Vienna's Community Development Action Plan for the 2020-2021 time period. If all goes well, it is supposed to start October the 1st, but anyone who is familiar with the federal government knows that that date can come and we can be 2 or 3 weeks later before we actually get the grant agreement. The city will be receiving $107,954 and is proposing to expend it as follows. ADA walkway from the tennis court sidewalk to the shelter near the tennis courts at a cost of $3,220. An ADA walkway in Jackson Park, which will connect the access road to the ADA restrooms at a cost of $2,260. ADA items for Spencer Park restroom, $15,000. The continuation of the city's energy efficient doors and windows programs at a cost of $28,247. Continuation of the city's minor home improvement program, which will do roofs, HVACs, gutters, and downspouts, $28,247. Demolition of $16,000, and program administration of $15,000. The city has held 3 public hearings regarding this, so we've met our requirements. And one of the questions that did arise was the demolitions. And I do have a list now from the city that has 8 various projects. If you've ever done demolitions, it's a long process. And my lawyers here can attest to that. By the time you give everybody notice and they can take out a building permit and stop the process, etc. But right now there are 8 different structures that are in various stages of the demolition process. So don't know how quickly they'll move or if the person will decide to fix them. But anyway, if the city does have to demolish it, there will be funds available for that. So as I mentioned, we've done our public hearings. They were in person as well as live stream. We're at our final step now of asking council to vote for the budget so we can send it on to the HUD-Pittsburgh office.
Tony, I'd like you to check something for us, if you would, please.
Mm-hmm.
In the numbers that you read off, you stated that for the energy efficient windows and door replacement program, $28,247.
Yes,
Mine says $237.
you're correct. Doesn't pay to get in a hurry.
Okay, and the next one also you said was $28,247, and
should-
mine also reflects $237.
Yes, you are correct. My
Okay,
mistake.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any questions for anything before we actually go to the vote on this?
Is there already money in the budget for demolition?
Not in the CDBG budget.
What's the planning administration, 15,000, what is that?
Part of it goes to pay my fee to administer the grant. Part of it also goes when we have to put legal notices in the newspaper. Part of it goes when we have to do the recording fees for the housing projects and anything else that may come up.
Okay. All right, then I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Vienna that the following projects be included in the 2020-2021 Community Development Block Grant application. ADA accessibility, the ADA walkway, $3,220. The ADA walkway, $2,260. ADA items for restroom replacement, $15,000. Under the enhancement and public services, under housing, energy efficient windows and door replacement program, $28,237. Under housing, minor home improvement program, roof, gutters, downspouts, HVAC, $28,237. Demolition, $16,000. Planning and administration, $15,000, for a total of $107,954. Upon adoption of this resolution, the City Council of the City of Vienna hereby adopts the attached annual action plan for its Community Development Block Grant Program for the 2020-2021 program year, and hereby authorizes submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the Pittsburgh office. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for the 2020-2021 CDBG program. Is there any further discussion?
Is this for the greenhouse over here? Demolition? Is
No,
that-
nothing.
Okay.
Anything else? Then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Tony, thank you for guiding us through this again.
No problem.
Any update on where we're at with our small business
Yeah,
program?
I wanted to tell you that. I had conversations today with the HUD Pittsburgh office as well as the city of Parkersburg. I know it's taken much longer than anyone anticipated. We are hoping, keep your fingers crossed, for the beginning of September.
Oh, that's good.
Like I always say, government is hurry up and wait.
Tony, did you have good response as far as applicants for that program?
Regional Council has not yet. They have had several phone calls, but no official app, because any information, financial information that is provided, once it is anywhere between 3 to 6 months old, HUD considers it old information. So we would have to go back and redo it all over again, so we just decided to wait.
Thank you.
Since we were talking about housing and the projects that are on the board, I'd like to make a comment to Ms. Williams and Ms. Greenbridge, just for a clarification. The area that you're referring to, on the left-hand side of this particular house is a large apartment complex, and across the street is another large apartment complex. I have been down by that house almost every day since Kim brought that to my attention. And I have to say that the residents that live in that, I've only seen one automobile in that entire thing ever, okay? And there has not been one bag of trash, not one piece of paper on the lawn. But having said that, our code enforcement officers have been down and spoken with this gentleman numerous times. And next week, we're going to be allowed in the house to do a full-blown inspection. So at that time, we have no verification of any of the things that have been brought. We have to physically go in and look and do the inspection. So next week we will do that, and then we'll have a better idea of what the actual situation is right there. So, you know, I'm sorry that you've had trouble in your neighborhood, and I certainly don't want you to be afraid to live there. But we're going to take a look at it and see what the actual inside of this structure looks like, okay? So it's not like the city hasn't been doing anything about it. It's, as Tony said, these things take time. You just cannot, you have to go through the process. That's the way it works, okay? The next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval from the Streets Department for salt. Mr. Leach?
Thank you, Mayor. Sealed bids for the salt for the 2020-2021 winter seasons were open on July 31st, 2020 at 9 a.m. with the following results. Compass Minerals, $76.93 per ton delivered. Cargill Inc., $70.15 per ton delivered. Mid-Atlantic Salt, $125 per ton delivered. Morton salt, $82.70 per ton delivered. After careful review of the bid proposals, recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee is for salt is Cargill Inc. at $70.15 per ton. Funding from this project will come from the city's general fund.
That price is delivered, isn't it, Mr. Leach?
Yes, all prices quoted were delivered.
Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the low bid from Cargill Incorporated in the amount of $70.15 a ton delivered.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the sealed bid for salt for the 2020-2021 winter season from Cargill Incorporated in the amount of $70.15. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Last year, we approved the salt bid, and we did not have to buy a ton of salt. So this year, we probably will be okay. We've got some left over, but we always have to lock the price in. The last item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading. This ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts. Mr. Skogstad, would you please explain the procedure for bringing an ordinance back once it has been defeated?
But simply just reintroduce the bill, or in this case, the ordinance for council's consideration at any individual council member's request. You just treat it like you would if it were brand new and being newly introduced.
Okay. Chief Pfeiffer, would you, if you can, briefly explain the new law that was passed by the West Virginia legislature in regard to licensing and inspecting of UTVs, please?
Sure. As of beginning of June, the West Virginia legislature passed a law in order to make ATVs and UTVs what they term as street legal. Street legal would make, requires them to be registered, obviously insured and inspected, just as you would a motorcycle, is how they reference that. So street legal. And then you say, well, what can you do with them? Well, the way I read it, you can ride or drive your ATV, UTV street legal on any road upon the state of West Virginia, 55 miles per hour or under. There are a few restrictions in there, as I recall, none of which apply to the city of Vienna. That had to do with grade.
Controlled access highway.
I think basically, and overpass, underpass. That's a brief explanation of what the bill is.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's what I was asking for. Thank you. Okay. Any comments, Mr. Bibby?
No, I just make a comment regarding the proposed ordinance that we're looking at. It involves Section 3, Paragraph A of the ordinance, and the recommendation is that just to drop the Walmart crossing and just have it read 12th Street and Grand Central Avenue, period. I'm going to see exactly how the other one read. The other one read, and at the traffic light at the intersection where Walmart intersects with and empties onto Grand Central Avenue. And the proposal is to drop that sentence off of the ordinance for the new ordinance.
Okay. Mr. Skogstad, since you rewrote this, would you please read it in its entirety?
Really? Okay.
Do you want my full copy, or are you going to do it off
No,
your
I've,
iPad?
I've got one.
Thank you, sir.
An ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Vienna that it hereby adopts and enacts the following. Article 1, motorized carts, ATVs, and UTVs. Section 1, definitions. The following words, terms, and phrases, when used in this article, shall have the meanings ascribed to them in this section, except where the context clearly indicates a different meaning. A, all-terrain vehicle or ATV means any motor vehicle designed for off-highway use and designed to travel on not less than 3 low-pressure tires, having a seat or saddle designed to be straddled by the operator and handlebars for steering control, and intended by the manufacturer to be used by a single operator or by an operator and no more than 1 passenger. B, go-kart, a small car that has 1 or 2 seats and an open top that is used especially for racing, including but not limited to open-wheel kart designs. C, motorcycle means any motor vehicle manufactured with no more than 2 wheels and having a seat or a saddle for the use of the operator. D, motorized cart, an electric and or gasoline-powered cart commonly referred to as a golf cart or any other all-terrain vehicle or utility terrain vehicle, including all-terrain vehicles or utility terrain vehicles as defined by the West Virginia Code. Off-highway vehicle means a vehicle intended for off-highway use and includes all-terrain vehicles, utility terrain vehicles, golf carts, and off-road vehicles. Operator, every person who drives or is in actual physical control of a motorized cart upon a street, road, or highway, or who is exercising control over or steering a vehicle being towed by a motor vehicle. Owner, a person who holds the legal title of a motorized cart, or in the event a vehicle is the subject of an agreement for the conditional sale or lease thereof, with the right of purchase upon performance of the conditions stated in the agreement, and with an immediate right of possession vested in the conditional vendee or lessee, or if a mortgagor of a vehicle is entitled to possession, then the conditional vendee or lessee or mortgagor is the owner for the purpose of this chapter. H, utility terrain vehicle, or UTV, means any motor vehicle with 4 or more low-pressure tires designed for off-highway use, having a bench or bucket seat, having bench or bucket seating for each occupant, and a steering wheel for control. I, as used in this article, motorized cart or the plural means all-terrain vehicles, utility terrain vehicles, golf carts, and off-highway vehicles. Section 2, acts prohibited by the operator. No motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley with a posted speed limit in excess of 25 miles per hour or any part of Grand Central Avenue as set out in Section 3. No motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, alley, or with a posted speed limit in excess of 25 miles per hour before sunrise or after sunset, or during periods with fog, smoke, rain, or other unfavorable atmospheric conditions, or at any other time when there is not sufficient light to render clearly discernible persons and vehicles on the highway at a distance of 500 feet ahead without operable lighted headlights and taillights capable of being clearly seen at a distance of 500 feet. No motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley by any person who does not possess a valid operator's license. For purposes of this article, learner's permits and junior operator licenses do not constitute a valid operator's license. D, no motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley with a number of occupants in excess of the number of persons for which said vehicle was designed. E, no motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley unless all occupants are seated while said vehicle is in motion. F, no motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley with a child under the age of 6. G, no motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city, street, or alley with an occupant under the age of 18 years unless said occupant is wearing a size-appropriate bicycle helmet. H, every motorized cart shall be operated in accord with local or state traffic laws. I, no motorized cart shall be operated on any sidewalk, right-of-way, or other location upon which a motor vehicle is prohibited except crosswalks for purposes of crossing a city street as set out in Section 3A and 3B of this article. J, no motorized cart may be equipped with flashing warning lights unless said motorized cart is an authorized and designated police or fire vehicle so designated by the Vienna Police Chief or Vienna Fire Chief. K, go-karts are expressly prohibited from operating on the roads, streets, or highways of the city of Vienna. L, no motorized cart is herein defined may cross a city street or highway except at an intersection on a path perpendicular to said street or highway or in a clearly marked crosswalk. M, all motorized carts must yield to pedestrians. N, all motorized vehicle operators are required to carry liability insurance policies and proof thereof, including motorized vehicles operated on public roadways within the city of Vienna. O, nothing in this article shall apply to any other power-driven mobility device powered by batteries, fuel, or any other motor or engine when it is used by individuals with mobility disabilities for the purposes of locomotion. This includes electronic personal assistance mobility devices such as the Rascal or Segway, or any mobility device designed to operate in areas without defined pedestrian routes, but that is not a wheelchair so long as said device is being operated in a manner or fashion consistent with the rules governing pedestrian traffic. All such devices are OPDMDs when operated by an operator who possesses a state-issued disability placard, card, or other state-issued proof of disability, or by the operator verbally stating that the OPDMD is being used by a person with a mobility disability, as long as the statement does not contradict observable fact. For purposes of this article, OPDMDs do not include motorized golf carts, UTVs, or ATVs as set out herein. Section 3 exceptions. A motorized cart may cross a street that has a posted speed limit in excess of 25 miles per hour, but no greater than 45 miles per hour when crossing at an intersection at a path perpendicular to said street or highway, or where crosswalks are clearly marked and available in a crosswalk, except that portion of Grand Central Avenue located south of 28th Street. It is expressly prohibited for a motorized cart to cross any part of Grand Central Avenue south of 28th Street except at the intersection of 28th Street and Grand Central Avenue, 23rd Street and Grand Central Avenue, 12th Street and Grand Central Avenue. The city by the mayor, the city by the mayor or police chief may authorize the operation of motorized carts or go-karts, which would otherwise be prohibited under this article for the limited purpose of allowing participation in parades, exhibitions, and other special events or in emergencies or for another specific purpose. Section 4 penalties. A, any person who violates the provisions of this article shall be fined not more than $100. Any person who is convicted of a second or subsequent offense shall be fined not more than $250.
I thought you read that a little fast. Could you do it a little slower this time? I guess not.
An ordinance. You know, I see a problem here with Section 2, Paragraph A. Actually, give me a second. Okay, no, I'm fine. We're good. I just wanted to read it again.
All right, would you reread it for us also?
Well, it says no motor. It's fine. It just says you can only ride it on roads that have a speed limit of 25 miles an hour or less.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. For my next trick.
Chief Pfeiffer, comments from you, sir? None? All right. I know that there were some comments made earlier in the evening about the golf carts, but you may find it hard to believe, but there are over 200 golf carts in the city of Vienna. And for me, when I look at this ordinance, I see a way to make sure that basic rules of safety are adhered to. And yes, I don't believe they have any place on Grand Central Avenue from 28th Street down because the traffic's too fast. But I also believe that there have to be rules if you're going to operate vehicles as far as liability insurance and who's allowed to drive them and safety equipment and things like that. And so I think that honestly the best thing for the city of Vienna would be to look at all of the new laws that have come in and to put a comprehensive ordinance together that would deal with the new laws with the UTVs, the ATVs. You're going to see more and more of those UTVs. I've seen a considerable amount of them recently, and the stipulation is you must have a state inspection and you must have a vehicle license plate on those. And other than that, you can drive them on anywhere you want, and it's within the city. And so I think that this is a start. I think that what we need to do as a council is to form some sort of a committee to work with the police department and code enforcement to develop a long-term comprehensive ordinance to give us guidelines on how to safely maintain our streets. So having said that, this is an ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the ordinance regulating I'll entertain a motion for the approval of an ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, etc. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, one thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
I just briefly, with respect to the helmet provision, just a clarification, I think that the bicycle helmet or approved DOT helmet, just to clarify that either of those are acceptable. Of course, the DOT helmet would afford greater protection. So I'd move to amend the ordinance to include that language. That's my only comment right now.
All right, so you'd like to amend the ordinance to say either a bicycle helmet or an approved DOT helmet?
Correct.
All right,
That is in section 2.
Excuse me a minute, Bruce.
Section
We're-
G.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's in 2G.
you're clarifying what section it is?
It's in 2G. And Mr. Skogstad, on his email to each of us, asked that it be amended to the words that he wrote in his email to us.
Mr. Skogstad, would you clarify
It's
2G,
just
please?
simply,
Yeah,
it's just simply adding or DOT approved helmet.
Right, you can have a bicycle helmet or a DOT approved helmet, either one. It's, honestly, my recommendation is purely pragmatic, I don't think it's a word. Pragmatic, when the officers, if they have to pull somebody over, right now it just says bicycle helmet. One of the difficulties in dealing with motorcycles even, and many of the things that go with cars, is that sometimes people will put things on there that or otherwise don't meet a federal safety standard. When an officer can see on a helmet that it's DOT certified, that helps the officer identify that that is an acceptable piece of safety equipment, and it cuts down on the arguments between the public and the police officer. And it's not changing the ordinance with any great respect. It's just allowing that as an option in addition to what was considered last time with the bicycle helmet. It's an or, not a replacement.
I want to check my writing of that, Russ. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
When you read the ordinance as presented, how did you state 2G?
As it was presented, let me find it here. No motorized cart may be operated on an interstate highway, state highway, city street, or alley with an occupant under the age of 18 years unless said occupant is wearing a size-appropriate bicycle helmet. That's what it says in the draft that's before council. My suggestion is to change that last little bit to say a size-appropriate bicycle helmet or DOT-approved helmet.
And that's what Mr. Leach's
what Jim
amendment
wants
was
to
doing.
amend.
Yes, that was his
So
amendment.
that's the point we are. I thought I was
Correct.
clear on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been moved by Mr. Leach to amend the ordinance as presented
Correct.
to add the language or DOT-approved helmet.
Correct.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the ordinance to include the language or DOT-approved helmet. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, regarding your comments, and I agree with that. In fact, this was a little bit of a discussion that Chief Pfeiffer and I had just the other day. And I think that's probably the wise thing to do. However, I think we all know that that would be kind of a long, arduous task to do that. Identify what all the vehicles are. And, I mean, now we've got electric bikes and there's just abundance of vehicles, and they all don't operate the same. So, I support that, and think that's the way to go moving forward. But like you said, I think this is a point. I don't think there's a lot of people that don't realize, as you pointed out, how many golf carts that there are in the city. It's estimated by the country club that there's probably at least 50 golf carts a day going to and from up there, and that's just.
Okay, I'm sorry, Roger, but I'm going to call a point of order on you. We need to vote on this amendment.
Oh, sure.
And then we'll come right back to you. So
Okay.
don't lose your thought, okay?
Okay.
All right. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of changing the language to add or a DOT-approved helmet, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? 6-1, the amendment will be included in the ordinance. Mr. Bibby, if you'll conclude. And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Elam, I'll
Thank
be
you.
right to you in just a moment, sir.
Thank you. So anyway, moving forward, I think that's something that we should do. Get together as a group or a committee, however you would want to do it, and work toward that. But in the meantime, I think it's important that we have something to regulate or somewhat regulate the use of these golf carts. Here's the bottom line: they're going to use them irregardless. Whether the ordinance is passed or whether the ordinance is not passed, these folks are going to continue to use these golf carts. So my thinking is, let's try to regulate what we can at this point, while we work toward a all-inclusive ordinance, as opposed to having them out there right now, or having them out there doing what they're doing right now, operating under no guidelines or no regulations.
Okay. Mr. Elam, I tried to get you a minute ago.
I think Mr. Leach was going to say something.
I think just, and this goes some to Ethel's point and to overall ATVs, UTVs, LSVs, these are all becoming a part of our society. I think Vienna is actually particularly suited to the use of these vehicles. We have the country club, we have a lot of people who rely on these, and they're the balance of the rest of the community who may not, and in fact, somewhat object to that. And so I voted against the ordinance on the last reading when it included down to the Walmart crossing. I think 12th Street is far enough. It gives access. Mr. Bibby's made a point in the past that gives all of the residents of our community that shop access to either side of Grand Central to be able to use it. I agree with Mr. Bibby that getting the ordinance in place now to regulate the use, to require insurance, to require some of these safety guidelines makes sense. And again, the topography of Vienna is pretty well suited to this, and we've got a significant part of our community that takes advantage of that. So I agree with Mr. Bibby that that while we do need to consider this law that was just passed in West Virginia regarding ATVs and UTVs, the motorized bicycles, City of Parkersburg's been dealing with that, but right now, give the balance that our community needs to make this use available to those citizens who can take advantage of it, and to protect all of the citizens with regard to where they're allowed to be and where they're not allowed to be.
Yes, sir, Roger.
I personally.
Roger, would you speak in your microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I personally just this week witnessed two young ladies in a golf cart here in Vienna across the street in front of oncoming, I should say, traffic. If they would have waited 15 seconds, there would have been no traffic coming. They made it across. I held my breath, but they made a bad decision. It only takes one bad decision like that, and that would be a catastrophe. I was against this, voted against it last time, but when I personally witnessed this week myself, and I held my breath, hoping that golf cart made it across before the car got to it, then there was absolutely no doubt in my mind. The overwhelming majority of the citizens that I talk to in Vienna are opposed to this. I have talked to maybe two that are in favor of it. I've talked to many that's against it. I have talked to several law enforcement officers throughout this county that say this is a bad idea. So, with all of those things that I just spoke about, I don't know how in the world we could, as a body, set up here and approve that, especially in the business zone of Vienna. I mean, we have a clear dividing line of business versus residential, of crossing 2 lanes versus crossing 7 lanes, and down in the 12th Street, the 23rd, the 28th, I'm sorry, but we're still in the business zone. There's a big difference, in my opinion, between crossing a street in a business zone versus crossing a street in a residential zone. But, this is something that I don't want on my conscience. If I would have had to have witnessed that golf cart with those kids in it getting broadsided and know that I voted for this, I'd have a lot of sleepless nights.
Mayor, if I could, when the council members are finished speaking, but before you call it for a vote, I want to add one thing to it that I think is the law of unintended consequences in light of 17A 13.1, but I'll wait until it's my turn.
Ms. Smith?
I can't vote for it. I didn't vote for it in the past. I still consider it a safety issue. I somewhat agree with what you said as far as the business and that district down there. Those highways are dangerous. It's horribly dangerous when you have distracted drivers out there as well. And to see young kids, I mean, 6 and under, so that means 6 and above will be riding in those things all over town. I personally cannot get beyond the safety issue of it. I voted on the amendment. I voted no on the amendment just moments ago about the helmet for that same reason. You know, I think if at all, they should be required to have a DOT, if in fact this would even pass, not a bicycle or, because that same safety issue is there if a child has a styrofoam bicycle helmet on and is hit down at 12th Street, look out. That child is not going to survive at a 45-mile-an-hour vehicle hitting it. And that's, I mean, I understand what a lot of people are saying as far as, you know, we've grown, there are more golf carts in the area. I cannot get beyond that safety issue.
Bruce? First of all, I'd like to say that we are a city government, and as a city government, we cannot pass laws or deal with laws or enact laws that go against our federal government or our state government. I mean, we are a city. If the federal government passes law and we have something that goes against it, then we have to change it. The American Disability Act was passed, I believe, in 1990 or 1980. I think before that it was dealing with an act called a Responsibility Act that got turned into the American with Disability Act. The American Disability Act, which is a federal law, says that golf carts are classified as other power-driven mobility devices. Other types of those type of devices is called a Segway. If you have a disability, any of you in here has one of those blue placards from the state that says you have a disability, you can drive an AT or a golf cart with that and be classified as being under the American with Disability Act. If I'm driving a golf cart and I am stopped because they don't have one of those little blue placards, all I have to do is say that I have a disability, and under the American Disability Act, it says an officer that would stop me cannot question me if I say I have a disability and I'm using the golf cart. That's under the American Disability Act. Now, as far as the state is concerned, the chief just talked about, I think it was July 5th, the state of West Virginia passed a new statute allowing ATVs and UTVs, but not golf carts, to be registered the same as motorcycles. ATVs and UTVs have a title. Golf carts don't have a title, okay? They don't need a title because they're classified as a OP, other power-driven mobility device under federal law. Another thing, Mr. Bibby and Mr. Conley had talked about crossing in front of Walmart. Does anyone know the speed of front of Walmart? I think it's 40. Is that right? Grand Central, 40 miles an hour. Let me read this. With respect to golf carts, low-speed vehicles, state code says that any motor vehicle that is four-wheeled and whose attainable speed is 1 mile on a paved level surface is more than 20 miles per hour, but not more than 25 miles per hour, may cross state routes at traffic lights when the state route does not have a posted speed greater than 40 miles an hour. I believe there is a traffic light in front of Walmart. It is a state route, and the golf cart is, as far as I'm concerned, classified under that way. As far as this ordinance, there's two things in there, and I stressed them before. I was coming south on Grand Central the other day. I saw a woman and a daughter crossing Grand Central. The daughter did not have a safety helmet of any type. I'm sure the person driving the golf cart did not have insurance. And the only good thing about this is, number one, people who have golf carts now would have to be given or have to apply for insurance, okay? The other thing is anyone under 18 years of age has to have a certified bicycle helmet or a DOT helmet, which safety-wise, I don't know if you're going to collide. I mean, some of the vehicles that come down Grand Central, they don't always adhere to 35 and then 40 miles an hour. And if you would happen to collide with someone with a vehicle or a truck or something like that, it could be devastating. And with a helmet, at least there might be a better chance of survival. And that's the biggest thing in here as far as I'm considered, as far as the safety of this is concerned. But I don't care if 7th Street in front of Walmart is there or not. I have no idea. The mayor said there's over 200 golf carts. I have heard from about 50 people in north end of Vienna that have golf carts and want to use them. Most of them, there's 2 or 3 that want to take their kids to and from Greenmont, and there's several people who want to go back and forth to Parkersburg Country Club. And I hope most of you know Parkersburg Country Club, even though it's surrounded by the city, is not in the city limits, but the roads going there are in the city. So I am concerned about the safety of those riding in golf carts, making them get insurance and making them ride with helmets. I think that is a number one priority right now. I didn't hear about low speed vehicles till the other day. It is mind boggling in things that are out there today. I was in Amish country the other day, okay, and I saw an Amish lady going uphill, and she wasn't pedaling her tricycle. It was one of the e-machines, battery powered, and she was using it there. We just had an actor who had an accident on his e-machine bicycle that severed his spine in 2 different places because he didn't read the instructions very well, and he got hurt because of it. I think we're facing an awful lot more than just this right now, but I think this is a start. As far as motorcycles or bicycles with motors on it, I think that's going to come here too, because if you go to Grand Central and you sit there very long, you hear this going down Grand Central, and there goes one of the bicycles with a motorized motor on it. So it's coming, and I think this is a start, and I hope that as we change, that we can change it and make it a little better in the progress. Thank you, Mayor.
Chief Pfeiffer, I have a question for you. Based on Mr. Conley's comments of what he observed up on 51st Street, Roger? 55th?
No, it was actually on toward 46th Street.
Okay, when he saw the golf cart crossing, what means would our officers have of?
Was an underage unlicensed driver? Is that what you mean?
Well, in the circumstance that he described, I'm not sure. How old would you guess?
I can't tell you that they was they was mid-teenage years. They could have been 16 with a license. I don't know, but they was, I would say probably not, but it's possible. They was teenagers.
I mean,
For sure.
as far as enforcement wise, I mean, if we're talking about issuing a citation or not,
Well, yes, sir. What would be the procedure that you would do if you observe something like that?
it'd be just like a normal traffic stop. Turn your lights on in your car, you pull the car over. It's a traffic violation. If it's an unlicensed underage driver, they get a citation, just like anybody else. The DMV makes them a license number, and then their license will, they'll suspend them being able to get a license when they're of age. Exactly what will happen.
That's correct.
And it's 18.
This says 18. You have to have a regular operator. It's
Right.
not a junior
Right.
operators or any of that.
So that clarification, you can't, at 16 or 17, you can't operate a golf cart. You have to have a valid, you have to be
You
18.
have to be 18 with a valid operator's license.
Okay. Mr. Skunk said you wanted to clarify something?
Well, there are a couple things. Mr. Rogers brought up that I'd like to address. One is the OPDMDs. Again, I do not believe that this ordinance affects people's ability to use whatever mobility device that they want to use to move. If they want a Segway, golf cart, or whatever, they can still use that if they're handicapped. It doesn't violate the ADA in any way, and I say that because you treat a person on a personal mobility device the same as a pedestrian. So if you were on one of those other powered mobility devices, the city may well be able to keep you from driving in the street the same as it would a pedestrian from walking in the street wherever there's not a sidewalk or what have you. But I don't think the city could tell a person who has an appropriate handicap placard or is otherwise physically disabled from using any personal mobility device on a sidewalk. But just like a pedestrian, you can't drive it in the street. But you could cross at a crosswalk just like you could if you had a rascal, just like some of the folks do that have mobility issues that ride down the sidewalk, hit the traffic light, hit the crosswalk button and go across. This ordinance, in my opinion, isn't going to affect their ability to use whatever mobility device that they choose. It's just like a person who is regularly abled, they wouldn't be able to do it in the street. You know, and obviously there are going to be times when that's going to happen, just like when you're walking down the street that doesn't have a sidewalk in it. You walk out into the street. They would reasonably be able to do that. So one, I don't think it's going, in my opinion, this doesn't affect that or prevent anybody from using whatever device that they can use, that they need to use to get around. It merely affects where motorized devices can be used, and they can't be used in the street. The second thing was just a general point of clarification. Now that 17A 13.1 has been passed, and that's the West Virginia statute that governs ATVs and UTVs, those fancy things that people see, you're driving the side-by-sides and what have you, essentially. If you can get a title for it now, more or less, then you can get a motorcycle registration for it and you can drive it in the street. One of the things, however, that this ordinance, when it was originally drafted, did not contemplate that, because when this was originally drafted, that wasn't a statute that was in place. So 17A 13.1 has a provision that says you can use essentially a street legal special purpose vehicle, which is all those ATVs, UTVs, Mahindras, and whatever, as a special purpose vehicle that meets the requirements of the section. An individual may not operate a special purpose vehicle as a street legal special purpose vehicle on a highway if, and this is where this ordinance does impact that statute, 2, the county, municipality, or DNR where the highway is located prohibits special purpose vehicles. This ordinance, when it was originally drafted, took ATVs, UTVs, and golf carts, lumped them into one category. So I want you to understand that, in my opinion, the way the statute's written, or our ordinance is written now, we have them all three categorized as a motorized cart. This ordinance, the way that it's drafted now, would not only would golf carts not be limited to where they could be legally driven on the roads at 25 miles per hour and so forth, but it may have, as I said, the unintended consequence of limiting where licensed ATVs and UTVs can be driven, meaning you could only drive them on the highways and roads that we've set out. So I want you to understand that, and that's why I wanted to talk to you all about this before we went in. And what was the last thing? Roger, you brought up two things that were important, well, you brought up many things that were important, but two. One was the ADA. Oh, the crossing at the intersections. The statute, and again, this would, under West Virginia Code 17A11, there's a definition for low-speed vehicles, and I cited that in my email to the council members. And it says any vehicle that's capable of a minimum speed of 20 miles per hour over the course of a mile, and not capable of going faster than 25 miles per hour, right? So there are some golf carts that are going to meet that definition. So without this ordinance, you could technically be able to cross the roads. Now, keep in mind, Vienna doesn't allow golf carts to be ridden on the roads anyway. But you could, and the problem is it leaves it on the officers to know whether or not a golf cart is going to meet that definition of a low-speed vehicle or not. And many times an officer is not going to be able to determine that along the side of the road. You can't just tell how fast something goes just by looking at it sometimes. So in the end, I just want everybody to be aware that if we pass the golf cart ordinance as it is, with the definitions as they are in light of the statute, not only are you going to be regulating golf carts, but ATVs and UTVs as well. Now, if you want to amend it to change the definition of motorized cart, to strike out ATVs and UTVs, you can certainly do that and just limit it wholly to golf carts. And then you're not having that issue with the side-by-sides. If your intent is to govern the side-by-sides, then you can leave it as it is. But again, before you guys take a final vote.
So I'm reading, and I might just be misunderstanding, but you've got in your definitional section, you got ATV, go-kart, motorcycle, and then you've got motorized cart.
Correct.
And then I read, as far as acts prohibited, only addressing motorized carts.
But if you look at the definition of motorized cart, it says an electric and/or gasoline-powered cart, commonly referred to as a golf cart,
Okay.
or any other all-terrain vehicle or utility terrain vehicle, including those as defined by West Virginia Code. And the definitions that we used are the West Virginia Code definitions. So you could amend that to strike the ATV, UTV part of it out. That would leave the whole issue with 17A 13.1 alone. So all these guys that have gone out and gotten their side-by-sides registered to drive on the road, it would no longer affect them. All right, but it's just something to consider. The ordinance as it's proposed right now could affect those guys from being able to drive on side-by-side operators, and you may well want to do that. I don't know, but it could affect their ability to
So
drive
as it's
side-by-side.
drafted right now, if we pass this, then that would also, and I understand what you're saying, and I think everybody does, that golf carts, low-speed vehicles, ATVs, UTVs, all would be governed by this statute, which is enabled by the state
Yes,
statute that says we have the right to restrict what
correct,
they've granted. We can make a more restrictive
correct.
ordinance than what the states allow.
You can flat out prohibit them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So even though there's a state statute, municipalities, counties are afforded the ability to just say, no, we're not going to put up with it. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to see that. Charleston or whatever, somewhere bigger may not be interested in that at all. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up so you could consider it.
Bruce?
I just want to make a couple other comments. As far as our ordinances are concerned already, under ordinance 373-11, which deals with bicycles, helmets for children, there is a section in there that already talks about helmets and what type of helmets are good. Their American Society for Testing and Materials, which is the type of helmet that is required for riding bicycles. As far as bicycles here, if you ride a bicycle and you're under 15, you have to have that type of approved helmet, which is the same type of helmet we're requesting that a person would wear as far as if you're under 18, if you're riding a golf cart in the town. Also in section 955.02, there is a section dealing with OPDMD, and I never can get those initials, but it's other power-driven mobility devices, and it's talking about golf carts. And it is already adopted as far as our ordinances are concerned under there. One of the other type of OMPD whatever is a Segway, and I'll say this, if I had to ride a Segway, there would be no way in the world I'd be able to keep my balance and be able to ride one of those type of devices. So, I mean, a golf cart would be something else. And I cannot believe all the vehicles coming out today basically deriving from the American with Disabilities Act that are classified as low speed or something different, low speed vehicles. It is unbelievable amount of those type of vehicles that are now coming out in the market. Plus, like I say, the e-machines, which have battery powered as far as tricycles and bicycles also. But as far as I'm concerned, the only good thing about what we're trying to do right here, right now, is we require insurance and require some type of helmet. And I would have been upset, very upset, if that person pulling out in front of 51st Street came across in front of me and I did hit the vehicle, and I would have injured that young girl or even her mother. So having a helmet requirement and insurance, I think people are going to be taking a second look before they cross major intersections such as Grand Central. And one good thing from, was it 23rd up, you have a speed limit of 35, and from there down it's 40. So at least the speed limit in the northern part of the city is a little bit more easier, or a person could get across the street faster if they have to, using a golf cart of some type.
Mr. Bibby.
You know, I've heard the concerns over the safety, and, you know, I share those. I really do. I share all those concerns. I have concerns over the safety issue as well. And this kind of may go a little bit toward what Bruce was talking about, but if this ordinance fails, you don't want anybody to think or have the misconception that these golf carts are going to go away. They're not. They're not going to go away. And what are they going to be doing then? They're going to be operating under no guidelines, no regulation, no ordinance. So, you know, I just don't want anybody to have the idea if this fails that, you know, the problem solved, that, you know, we're not going to have golf carts out there running around, because they're going to. And, you know, I don't mean to say that, made to sound pert or whatever, but, you know, that's a fact. That's a fact. And, you know, the safety issues, and operating that way is not going to take care of the safety issues. It's not.
All right, let me remind council that this would be an ordinance on first reading, that if it passes this evening, it will be brought back up for a second vote at the regularly scheduled council meeting on August the 27th. All right. Any last comments? Yes, sir, Bruce?
I'd just like to say one last thing. It is very difficult, I think, if someone gets a UTV and they drive it and they have a license to drive it, between them and a golf cart, there's not too much difference as far as they are concerned, and they're, you know, they almost look alike, but one would be legal and the other is not. The state of Ohio is now authorizing golf carts to have license plates also. So I don't know if they're gonna come across our bridges into our cities or what, but, you know, Hyatt, they can take a golf cart to state police headquarters, get it inspected, and get it certified, and then they can get insurance and they can get a license in the state of Ohio as far as golf carts are concerned. So we need to be, I think, as far as that's concerned, get some kind of committee and develop something that deals with e-machines and motorized bicycles and everything else, but I think this is a start. Thank you.
All right, I'll call for the question then. All those in favor of the ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna on first reading, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Passes on first reading 4-3. It will be back on the agenda on August the 27th. Between now and then, I will do my best to have conversations and have a meeting where we can sit down and talk about these items that have come up tonight. Chief, we're going to rely on you heavily for that, and Russ, we'll need your assistance also. All right? Okay. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Council comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just speak just briefly, and I'm very happy to hear, Mayor, that you're going to be having code enforcement go to 11th Street, and I'm talking about the house that these two ladies talked about, Mrs. Williams and the other lady. I also did receive a call from a resident that lives on that street that was not only concerned about the house and what was happening there, but this lady also, and another gentleman that I talked to as well, after they called me, I did meet with them actually, and they're literally physically afraid. The comments that they made to me was that it was a neighborhood that the neighbors always used to be able to go out and enjoy sitting on their front porch. Now they're afraid to go out of their house because of what's happening here with this one gentleman that has verbally accosted them. I've seen a couple of videos of things inside that house. So I'm pretty comfortable when our code enforcement goes in, unless something has drastically changed since I've seen those videos, that there'll be some actions that can be taken. And I don't know what all those actions are, but I would just certainly want to encourage all of us, for the sake of those neighbors that are now scared to go out of their house, to do whatever we can do to rectify that situation.
Any other comments this evening? Okay. I have one that I would like to read to you all. I received a letter from Mr. Richard Taylor. He says, I want to take this opportunity to thank you and anyone else who had anything to do with the paving of the alley behind my home on 11th Street. I especially want to thank the city crew workers who did the work. They did a very nice job and were friendly and hardworking. During the 2-week time frame it took to complete the job, we had 2 pretty good storms that dropped a good bit of rain. In the past, my backyard would have flooded due to this, but now the rain went down the alley and not into my driveway. Except for normal rainfall, my patio was not standing in water, and we had no problems. Needless to say, this is what I wanted, and my wife and I are greatly relieved. My sump pump in my basement only came on twice, which is much less than before. Thank you again for taking care of this. My wife and I really appreciate it. We've had issues for a long time with this particular alley between 11th and 12th, and it was a unique situation. It was quicksand, and we'd paved it several times and we'd repaired it several times, and nothing seemed to fix it, so we concreted this time, and hopefully we've got ahead of that situation. In the last couple council meetings, we've had residents come in and talk about the stormwater issues with particular drainage. We are going to work on a long-range plan in order to find a way to efficiently move that water better through some of those neighborhoods. There's not a lot of options when it comes to Pond Run, so we're going to have to consider doing some underground retention tanks or something engineered so that we can actually help with this situation. But we are going to work on that issue right there because we realize it is a problem. So we at least satisfied one neighborhood, and hopefully we'll move on. And as money is available, we will work on these other areas that we've had trouble with over the years. So with that, there will be a special council meeting next Thursday at 7 o'clock, August the 20th. It will be for the TIF resolution for the development of the Grand Central Mall. We need to move forward with that, and they're ready with the project, so they're going to come, and we will be given a resolution for the TIF project. The next regular council session is scheduled for August the 27th, 2020 at 7 p.m. With that, Tony, thank you for coming. We appreciate your help.